Regular meeting of the Negaunee City Council. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Kangas, Councilmember Gladwell, Councilmember Mino, Councilmember Wallner,
Present.
Councilmember Karki, Councilmember Chloe,
Here.
Councilmember Lalonde. Here.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
I would like to move item 9.3 from the consent agenda and make it 8.9.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. I get the motion to approve the agenda as amended. Okay, Councilmember Floyd, seconded by Councilmember Lalonde. All in favor of the amendment as agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so moved. Public comment. Before we begin public comment, we do have two public hearings this evening, 6.1 and 6.2. If there's anyone interested in reserving time for those, please say so during the public comment, and you'll have time for 6.1 and 6.2. Otherwise, at this time, public comment not to exceed 3 minutes. Anyone for public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll close item 5, public comment. Moving on to public hearing, 6.1, amendment number 1273, excuse me. Add marijuana establishments in industrial district as a special land use. At this time, I'll open the public hearing.
That wants to speak, you can go ahead.
I can give you a quick update just to remind everyone in the public. This is just an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow for special land use for marijuana establishments, which you guys have already established in our marijuana ordinance that we passed several months back. So it's the final piece of the puzzle to accomplish that goal. Any questions concerning that?
Was this our first or second public hearing?
This is the second reading public hearing, so you need to take a vote to approve or.
Okay, that's what I messed up. Okay. With no further, I'll close the public hearing on item 6.1. Okay, with that said, I receive a motion to add marijuana establishments to industrial district as a special land use. Councilmember Lalonde. Councilmember Gladwell supports. At this time, any discussion? Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor of...
Do a roll call on that?
We are. Thank you. We will be doing a roll call vote on this, so at this time, we'll start over with Councilmember Gladwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallner,
Yes.
Councilmember Chloe,
Yes.
Councilmember Lalonde. Yes. Motion passes.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 6.2, discontinuance of publicly owned land and authorization of sale, Jackson Grove Park tennis courts. Madam Secretary, background.
Attached is a resolution authorizing the discontinuance of publicly owned land and the authorization of the sale of the portion of Jackson Grove Park containing tennis courts. As required by Negaunee City Charter Section 14.4, this public hearing was advertised once a week for 4 weeks. Recommendation: to hold a public hearing to secure citizen input, approve the resolution and authorize the discontinuance of publicly owned land and sale of the portion of Jackson Grove Park containing tennis courts at a public auction and set a price. Alternative: none recommended. Fiscal effects: cost of publication and auction.
Okay, at this time, I will open the floor to public hearing on item 6.2 as read. Oh, just fine. Okay. Going once, going twice. At this time, I'll close public hearing on item 6.2. So with that, this is the first reading, second reading. second reading. So I will be looking for a motion.
I move that that we approve the resolution and authorize the discontinuance of publicly owned land at former Jacksonville Park. I'll support that.
Okay. And discussion.
I think it's the right move for the city, with this potential bidder, which is gonna get, excuse me. Got me lost my train of thought. Is going to benefit as well too, so I think this is a no-brainer for us.
Councilmember Floyd.
I support it totally and agree. We've discussed it for the last few months and I'm excited to move forward.
And I guess the only comment I have on that is that, in support of the school system being the individuals that will be taking ownership, I think this is a great thing to continue to support our community. So we don't need a roll call in this one.
Sure, do we need a roll call on that, Jeremy?
Okay, so at this time, the motion's on the floor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Having no unfinished business, we'll move on to 8.1. Mr. Sosi, I'm here for the complete streets. Do you need to read any background on this or? City manager?
Ryan's here this evening from QPAD. He's been working on our portion of the Complete Streets project that is related to the RRC, that's redevelopment ready community certification through NEDC. He's just getting an update on this, and it's kind of a prelude to something you'll be hearing probably in April, I believe. The Planning Commission's been working on. This will eventually amend the zoning code. Ryan's going to give you more of the detail on what this actually means. And I want to kind of stress that this doesn't mean we're on the hook to make something happen. We have to take special consideration when we're doing specific projects related to streets. So Ryan, will be giving that.
Sure, absolutely. And we also have a copy of this and some extra maps that I have here. And so I have these maps printed off just because it might be a little bit hard to see on the projector here. But, thank you. All right, that's my presentation on here. Is that, I need to go ahead and use this laptop. I'll switch it. Or we gotta switch that. Okay.
Do you need to just internet access or?
Nope, I just need to plug this in with the PowerPoint.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna have to do that one. So.
And this one has a password on it.
Underneath the computer, right on the bottom. Flip it upside down.
It's like on the bottom.
On the
Bottom of the, okay.
There you go, I'm sorry.
Okay, yep.
Don't on the
I apologize for your.
Don't anybody listening.
Right, and so, this is not mine? Here we go.
No.
Perfect.
I think for this presentation, I have to know here's
If you'd like to move over, Councilmember Gladwell's feeling lonely. If you'd like to be able to see the screen on the other side, you're welcome.
All right. There it is. All right, so we're calling it the Complete and Connected Initiative. So, what our initiative? It's a two-part program. So the first part of that was a sidewalk inventory and audit. So we walked through all of the city's sidewalks. I believe we had about 28, right around 27, 28 miles of sidewalk, if I'm not mistaken. It'll say a little bit later in the presentation, but we assessed those sidewalks for their condition on a scale of excellent, good, fair, and poor. And with that, we used our own rating system that we put together based on the condition of those sidewalks. So if they were really deteriorated, they were heaved, had very large cracks, buckles, trip hazards. Sort of our if a wheelchair couldn't pass over the sidewalk, then we really said that that was probably likely to be poor. And so we also looked at a couple of different best practices from the AARP on how they suggested rating sidewalks, and we kind of use that as a system for how we rated things. And so we went through and graded all of those in the city and mapped them out. And then part 2 of this was to look at your city's policies, plans, and ordinances for anything that related to complete streets. And if you didn't have that, then we made some recommendations about how you could update some of that. And so we really looked at those 3 key documents: the master plan, the zoning ordinance, and any other kind of administrative policy or adopted policy that you had out there. And so we went with, we looked at the RRC best practices. You're in the Redevelopment Ready Communities program. They have some standards that are in there for inclusion of complete streets amendments in your zoning ordinance. And so we made sure to capture those in the program too. And so we went a little bit of a step further too, and we assembled a Complete Streets Advisory Committee. And so that was a team of people who would have knowledge of your streets and your people, and who might be walkers or people trying to get from place to place, and invited them to make comments on the system as we saw it with various waypoints in the city that people might be walking to. And so what is a complete street? So just in case you guys weren't here for the last presentation, I kind of just wanted to share this with you here on the Public Act 134. This is all part of the Plant Mission Planning Enabling Act now. A complete street provides appropriate access for all legal users in a manner that promotes safe and efficient movement of people and goods, whether by car, truck, transit, assistive device, foot, or bicycle. So that what that essentially means is that we're designing streets with all people in mind who might be potential users of those streets. And so it's not a requirement that we have to adapt all of these facilities that are not already in that condition, but it means that when we go to replace or repair some of these facilities, that if they don't meet that standard, we really need to consider, is there a better way of doing this, and is there a way that we can make some changes that can make that a little bit better. And so the definition that we ended up coming up with for your zoning ordinance that would be included as a definition for a complete street would be a transportation policy that encourages streets to be designed and operated to enable safe use and support mobility for all users. Those include people of all ages and abilities, regardless of whether they are traveling as drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, or transportation riders, public transportation riders. And then we also have another definition here for context-appropriate design. And so this is kind of the thing that we're suggesting, that it might not be in every case that this has to be changed, but a context-appropriate design is a collaborative interdisciplinary approach involving a range of likely potential stakeholder users for the development of a transportation facility that fits its physical setting and preserves scenic, aesthetic, historic, cultural, and environmental resources while maintaining safety and mobility. And so that'll be something that is going to be coming to you later on in the project. But I just kind of wanted to show this first part of the project and how we ended up mapping out your facilities here. And so thank you to the Mining Journal and Lisa for the great coverage that we did on of the project that we did. And we were really happy to use this brand new system. So when I first presented this program to you guys, I was thinking I was going to be walking all of your streets with a clipboard and a pencil and writing in all the conditions of this. But shortly before we started the project, we found out that there was a beta of this new program coming out that would allow us to actually use this, and I have the graphic here of our system, a little handheld GPS receiver unit that is Bluetooth enabled and allows it to sync up with our phone. So our wizard over here on my right side, he works with, this is Ben, he works with a lot of our GIS, and he really knows a lot about tech. And so he designed us this app here that actually allows us to walk down the street with our phone synced to it. And as we're walking, we just click this segment of street is excellent. As long as you keep walking down that segment of street, it's constantly uploading that data saying this street is excellent to the cloud and mapping it real time as we're walking around. And so if we come upon something like a stop sign or something, we just punch the button and it punches in a stop sign there. So by the time we get back to the office, we already have a map created that has a number of things in it. And we're really excited about this because there's so many other applications that this could really work for, as we're walking along and, maybe identifying where blight is. You notice something in the community and you could punch something else in. But for this application, I thought it worked really well for that and ended up mapping out things in a really helpful way. And so I mentioned, we have these varying conditions, and so we put it into excellent, good, fair, and poor. And so you can kind of see from these pictures here, it was 21.34 miles that we assessed. But mostly everything is really falling into that excellent and good condition. You have a lot less of the fair and much less of the poor, thankfully. And so those poor ones are really going to probably be the ones that you want to tackle first as you're looking to repair things in the city. Those are the things that are really the trip hazards and the things that really hold up mobility for people who have mobility issues. And so we put it into a pie chart here. It shows that 20% of your condition is already in excellent, and another 57% is in good, and so that's over 75% of your sidewalk network probably doesn't need to be touched for at least a few years here. However, the sidewalks that are in poor condition, only about 8% of those, and then 15% in the fair. And so I'm sorry for this map here, and none of these are really ideal maps to be kind of putting up on the screen or printing off here. So we do have the digital maps though that we can share with you guys, and then that would probably be much easier to read. But so I broke it up into the north side of Arch Street and then the south side of Arch Street. And so the north side really had a lot of the newer sidewalks. You're going to see a lot of this blue and green in here, and a smattering of red just here and there. But mostly everything north of 41 was in good or excellent condition. And as you got further south than that, things started to deteriorate a little bit more. South of Arch, we're starting to see some pockets of where the poor sections are concentrated, kind of in the older sections. But notably, right here, up here in the upper left quadrant there, or northwest quadrant, you're seeing a pretty high concentration. That's kind of in the area of the school too. So, if you do have walkers, that might be kind of a consideration for focusing the first round of repairs. Okay, and so on your maps, I did have these maps printed out, and they might be a little bit difficult to read, especially the one that's identifies fair. So page 1 is excellent, page 2 is good, page 3 is the fair one, and that's in yellow, so it's really hard to see on there. And then the last page is poor, and that red stands out pretty well in those pictures. So that should give you a better idea of where things are concentrated. Do you guys have any questions on this first part? Because then I was going to move into the policy side of it.
I was hesitant to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure we kind of covered it during the time. So you've got certain neighborhoods that even if I go back to the last map, there's no study at all. So non-existent sidewalks, would that be something that there was potential for a sidewalk in those areas that just had not been one installed at that time? Maybe mark that as maybe an additional category?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that would be something that we would want to do, especially if it's kind of in the proximity of points of interest that people would likely be walking to. And I tried to map those out on your hand maps that you have there. All of the little red dots, they correspond to things that are key things that people would be going to: the schools, grocery stores, city hall, the ice arena, things like that. And so definitely if they're kind of in that area, and I believe we did especially note with the Complete Streets Advisory Committee that along Brown Street, that there was a lack of sidewalk in a key area where it's really wanted, right around the baseball fields. I remember the name of the road, right? I'm pretty sure it was Brown Street. Yes. Okay. It'll be on a future map too. So, but yeah, definitely on that. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, and so we have this zoning ordinance review, and we completed that back in November, and so that is, I believe, in the Planning Commission's hands now, and they're considering that. And so I made recommendations to a couple of sections here, primarily the zoning ordinance, but also I found a couple one opportunity to update the subdivision ordinance. Just to include, you already had all streets shall be properly integrated with the existing and proposed circulation system as established in the official map and master plan. And so we just added non-motorized facilities to that as well. Just in case any new subdivision that gets built, also considers their non-motorized system, that they're considering planning for sidewalks within that, because that just makes sense. We're looking for walkable communities. New people moving to Negaunee would be looking for walkable communities to locate in, and it's good for the health of the community, and so that's why we made that suggestion. I already mentioned a couple of the definitions that we would update within that, but then we also go into some of your districts, like the R2 district, regulations for multifamily dwellings and their parking standards, and made some suggestions about bicycle parking within that, or non-motorized parking. A multifamily dwelling, which proposes 16 or more off-street parking stalls, shall also provide safe and convenient facilities for non-motorized parking, which may include features such as a bicycle rack, covered stalls for non-motorized vehicle parking, bike lockers, or a similar feature. So it gives flexibility. It's not too prescriptive, but it does suggest that, if you have this many employees, that at least make a little bit of an accommodation for some ability for some of those employees to be able to use non-motorized to get there. In your special land use approval standards, we also said the special land use shall provide context-appropriate design features that are complementary to the goal of facilitating complete streets. This standard may be applied at the Planning Commission's discretion if, in the Commission's opinion, it would enhance the mobility of users in and around the development without creating a substantial financial burden on the developer. So again, we have that flexibility built into that. And then planned unit development standards, if that's ever a tool that you guys use. We also mentioned that non-motorized facilities shall be properly integrated with the existing and proposed circulation system. And in your standards for your site plan approval that the Planning Commission deals with pretty regularly, the site plan shall attempt to include context-appropriate design features into the city's goal of providing complete streets as established in the master plan and official city policies. This may include connections to adjacent non-motorized facilities, which we have the wonderful Iron Ore Heritage Trail, providing non-motorized parking features and handicap accessibility improvements unless otherwise excluded by the Planning Commission. And so that's a sample, and by the time it gets to the Planning Commission, they may have some comments on it, may make some tweaks, and then it'll be making its way back to you guys. And then we have a sample resolution that we modified here, and this is similar to what a lot of communities have done in recent years. This one, I believe, was adapted from Marquette Townships, who had a really great best practice that was recommended by the state, and so we adapted it from that. But I believe you guys, do they have the resolution here today? Cool. And so you'll see in reading that there's some flexibility also built into that too, that even though it's a policy, it considers that context appropriate design. Next, we have those recommendations from the Complete Streets Advisory Committee. And so I mapped out some of the locations where they made recommendations for things that were going on that might be headaches or future improvements that could be included. And so those things are identified here. So just up on Birch Road, we know that that street is going to change in the future here. There's going to be some new changes to the parking situation there, and there's the possibility for making some improvements that will enhance the area by the school, make things a little bit safer for the kids there. It was also noted that that US 41 right there at Teal Lake was a little bit of a difficult crossing situation for some people, and particularly if you're older or you got mobility issues, that's a challenge to get across that highway in the amount of time that the light is, and so that's something that we would definitely consider there. The train trestle, it's a little bit tricky to navigate under that with the space that's available there. We had a couple of improvements out by the football field and Macomb Field. Like I mentioned to you before, Brown Avenue had some missing sidewalk. Over by the school on K Street, the drop-off area there, Superintendent Dan Skewis mentioned that there's going to be some changes to that area, some angle-in parking, and potentially fixing the drop-off location there. There was a little bit of discussion about the Iron Ore Heritage Trail down here in the south, and how just for that one section where it's on road, that there could be a potential workaround for having the entire part of it on that, putting it on the south side and keeping it off of the road. So that would be a future conversation to work on with the Heritage Trail, and maybe seeing that improved. And then two other spots where we saw parks that were a little bit disconnected here, over on Ann Street in the east, and then Gold Street on the west side. And so these are nice parks that you guys have in the community, but unfortunately they're a bit disconnected. There isn't sidewalk that goes to either of those parks. There are neighborhoods that are close by, but we don't want to see little kids walking in the road going to those parks. So the recommendation would be to create some, maybe an additional improvements to crossing areas, or having some kind of facility there on the sidewalk, or creating a sidewalk rather. And does anybody have any questions about this map or any of the recommendations that we have here? So how I see this kind of playing out is, as you guys start working on your updated master plan, that all of this is going to be integrated into a section that we have on facilities and walkability and quality of life in the community. And we also have this Complete Streets Advisory Committee now that we can really use as a sounding board for any future recommendations that come out, or maybe having a representative of that board come and talk to the Planning Commission about why they chose some of these recommendations, and fleshing it out a little bit further. So I just mentioned we're going to be reconvening that advisory group to ID those top projects. We'll be holding a public workshop on quality of life in Negaunee, and present those complete streets recommendations and request the feedback of residents so that they can tell us, maybe there's some additional things that we missed on this group that we could discuss more. Then we're going to share those results back from that workshop with the Planning Commission and begin to incorporate some new language on complete streets. That is it. So, City Council, do you have any questions about the project or anything I can answer for you?
The only question I had, if I may, and again, you already touched it, but if you can go into detail a little bit more as to how the rating that you went by and how they came up with it. And I tell you that because, and this is just my opinion, our poor sidewalks are very bad. I think you could lump those two categories together. That's how I feel about it. But I'm curious as to how you came. Give me a little bit more depth of how they came up with the excellent, good, or.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I drew from was AARP. They have a sidewalk audit manual, and so we looked at
the Retirement Association.
Yeah. And so we drew a lot from that, but we really used a lot of our own discretion on that too. If we were walking down the sidewalk and it looked like something that was really going to trip someone, if it was a 2-inch heave in the sidewalk, that was absolutely a trip hazard that somebody could stumble and fall, and so that would have been something that would have fallen in our poor. Once you get to excellent and good, it's a little bit harder to tell between the two of those, but if it looked like a slab that was already, laid within, the last 5 years or something, you can really tell that it's fairly new and that there wasn't much else that needed to be improved upon that. If there was things like edging, that was a little bit of a, we had to use some discretion there because sometimes it's a perfectly fine slab of sidewalk. It just looks a little bad. And if you were to take an edger in there and clear some of that out, then it would probably be back up to either excellent or good at that point. So that was some of the discretion that we used in that. But for the most part, we did kind of follow what the AARP suggested.
I get the edging, the vegetation going through the cracks and stuff, and you're absolutely right. That's all I needed. I guess I'm more concerned with. And looking at the map and going off of memory, since we're all snow covered right now, it seems to me we got a lot that would be classified as fair that actually do have rates more than 2 inches. And that's the only reason I'm concerned. The bicycle accident last year that happened. More importantly, the elderly people that are walking and handicapped people with wheelchairs. That's one on that side. So, again, I know it's all money driven too. We'll fix them as we can, but that's where I was just curious as to where all that came up from. So,
Sure.
And I appreciate your efforts on this as well as the advisory committee's efforts too.
And so I guess this was a pilot project too, and we were learning kind of along the whole way as we were doing it. And so I think we learned some things that, with the use of the tool, how, if we were walking along, there could be another feature added into it where, if it's just a single spot where there's like the whole sidewalk is excellent, but there's just one spot where it just heaved up for some reason, that would have been a little bit harder to capture in our system because it's kind of a walking tool. So we would probably add that in the feature if there's, if we notice that there's just one corner that's sticking up like that, then we would probably add that for the future. But I think this would be a good project to do again in another 5 years or thereabouts. That way we can kind of see how it's changed over time, as you guys repair these sidewalks, how much of that pour is getting knocked off and becoming excellent again, or and as we update our methods and get better at doing it, then we can put things like that in there. And I think that would
And my last question for you then is, while you were out doing your walkabout on these different, were you able to capture curbing that might need replacement or repair?
I
Or were you
don't
just focused on the sidewalk aspect only?
Yeah, it was mostly that, unless the curbing was at at an intersection, and then we would note something like that. But in most cases,
Nothing like
It
it
was-
was the street, where there's missing pieces or whatever, things like that.
yeah, not quite.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further?
He brought the curbing up. Did you capture the tree issues, the trees that might need to be removed in this report?
Yes, we did at a later stage in the project. So that was kind of one of those improvements that we did as we were walking around. We didn't quite think that, hey, there's this bush that's like really coming over into it. And so when we ran into those situations a couple of times, we updated our app and started doing that throughout the project. So yeah, that was one thing.
And so I guess back to my question that I had, thinking of further questions or discussions. And that's where I was looking at some of the streets as I look at some of the maps here, where we have sidewalks or don't have sidewalks. I'm looking at like Everett and Carr Street, south of the railroad tracks, kind of on the eastern side of town, where that additional category, maybe to what Councilmember Gladwell was referring to as well. We've got some areas where there may have been sidewalk in the past, and it's just degraded to the point that it was eliminated. And so maybe adding that to the map at some point in time, and if this gets copyrighted or otherwise, if you're technically savvy cohort there, try pushing around an umbrella stroller with a 50-pound bag of sand and tell me where the cracks in the sidewalk are. So as you look at different apps and sensory, the things that, and that would be applicable as well to individuals that may be utilizing a wheelchair or some other mobility asset to be able to traverse it, as opposed to just walking. You're making a visual representation of it, looking at those actual small areas that you're referring to. But I guess that's where, as we build upon this, it might be good to know where some of those areas are where, the easements and otherwise would allow us to have sidewalks to expand those neighborhoods. Because I lived on Cherry Street at one point in time, but I don't recall sidewalks in Camelot, but once again, everything's covered with snow, so I can't remember if that subdivision has sidewalks in front of the homes. Okay. But I guess that's all I had.
Not everywhere, but the interior part of Camelot.
True. Yeah, and I was looking at that right along the Prince Street, or otherwise it doesn't have any. But areas where, and that's something for the planning commission as well, as they look at the different laying out new subdivisions. All right. So, anything further from the rest of the council at this time? All right. So on 8.1, thank you, Mr. Sosa, for your time and presentation. We'll be looking for a motion on the resolution. Yes, it is. So, council members, Chloe, do I have support for that motion? Supported by Councilmember Lalonde. We don't need a roll call for this one. We have a couple of those tonight. So, all in favor of supporting the resolution on our Complete Streets initiative? I'll wait for you to take a seat. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes. And I do apologize, I didn't know if that's a discussion, but I figured our questions have already been kind of addressed. All right, moving on to 8.2, AMI meter reading system. See that one in the background? Electing to move past the background on this, Brent, we're going to have you do the presentation.
That works for me.
Welcome and thank you.
All right. We'll make it a quick one tonight. So, Brett Nemi with WPPI Energy, for those who don't remember. We've been working on capital planning for the electric fund, and figured so back in November, council approved a little over $350,000 for the capital outlay of the 2020 budget. And one of the big projects in there is the AMI implementation project. So we figured we want to take a minute to kind of go through, kind of explain what AMI is, because A lot of people don't really know what AMI is, what our plan is to implement it, and what AMI can actually do for the city. Feel free to stop me at any point with questions too, because I'm kind of trying to go over a high flyover. So we've got two acronyms that we'll be talking with tonight. We have AMR and AMI. Of course, they have to be almost identical. So that's why I want to kind of point them out. AMR is advanced meter reading. That's the current meter reading system that the city is using right now. What we're looking at is we're proposing to replace the AMR system with an AMI system, or advanced metering infrastructure. So before I go into that slide right there, make it confusing, just to kind of give you an overview of what AMR is, the current system that's being used to read meters. So right now, in the AMR system, you have a radio reading piece of equipment that you put in the truck. You drive that truck around all the neighborhoods, around every water and electric meter, and as it goes by, you do this on a monthly basis, that will pick up the meter readings on each of the water and electric meters. Take that truck back to City Hall, you upload that data to the billing system, and then staff can go out and do the monthly billing. So AMR, it has some similarities, but there's some differences. So you look at there's a red line in the middle of the slide there. On the left-hand side is equipment that would be actually located here in Negaunee. And then on the right-hand side is actually equipment that is already up and running at WPPI's offices down in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. So we start off with the meters right here. So what we would do is start off installing electric and water meters. Actually, electric meters and radio transmitters to the existing water meters. This would create what we would call the AMI mesh. All these meters, they network together. And as they network together, they can bounce signals to each meter until the originating meter's data can reach one of three collectors. That's right there. Until that data reaches one of those three collectors. So this happens about, I think it's like every 4 hours. So every 4 hours, each meter will go for less than 2 seconds. Boop, give a pulse of information and makes it to one of those collectors. Now, back down on our side of things in Sun Prairie, our head-end system, which we have operating right here, will go at night, grab the data from those collectors, bring it into our computer system. That head-end system, after it collects it, pushes it over to our meter data management system. That system will take all that data, process it, put it in formats that you can use for reporting and billing and all kinds of fun things like that, and pushes it to the North Star system. The North Star system is actually hosted in our offices also, but it's the billing system that the city of Negaunee currently uses right now. So when the billing clerk goes and works in the billing system, virtually are accessing our systems down in Sun Prairie and do all the billing through there. So now once it's in the billing system, City Hall can access that information and go back and forth in there. And then also, just this last summer, we implemented this customer engagement portal called My Account. So the customer now can go in, actually access data in the North Star billing system. And the North Star billing system, it's a two-way street. It can actually, customer can go in, the billing system can actually push stuff to the customer too. So it makes it very interactive. So now the My Account system part of this is already in place. The thing that changes with the AMI and the My Account is now the customer has access to a lot more data and a lot of things that they can work with on their billing account. So who's implementing AMI? This graph is a graph that came from the Energy Information Agency. It's a graph showing AMI installations versus AMR installations. You can see it starts back in 2007, goes up to 2016. The orange line are the AMR installations, meters, I guess you'd say, throughout the United States. See it plateaus off And then the red one is the AMI installations. As of 2016, more than 50% of the meters and metering installations are more than 50% are AMI now in the United States. I do have data that goes up to 2018, and basically that trend just keeps on going up. It's up about 86 million in 2018. So trend is still going upwards on AMI. So why would Negaunee want to implement an AMI system? Well, a couple reasons. One, makes a little bit of sense because the current AMR system is going to be obsolete after 2021. There's two parts of that AMR system. There's software, and then there's actual equipment that does the collection. The software is going to need to be upgraded to a new version, and the equipment is just going to be obsolete. And you have to, if the handhelds that do the readings, one of those breaks, you have to either go on eBay or the black market and start finding old equipment because you're not going to get it from your current vendor anymore. The other big reason is customer expectations are changing. AMI provides more technologies than what AMR does. And they're really, as billing systems, they're not apples to apples comparisons. The AMI provides you with a lot more capabilities. I kind of liken it to think back in 2007 when the iPhone came out. You know, getting an iPhone in 2007 was kind of like a luxury item. Today, a smartphone is pretty much a standard expectation. And we're seeing a lot of similarities with AMI versus AMR nowadays. Did want to show you out of this, what the my account and the data that you can see. I can figure this out. Oh, here. That. Which one?
Escape on the keyboard.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so right now, if you're going to go into the My Account system and you had an account with City of Negaunee, you want to look at your electric bill or your water bill. This is what you'd actually see right now. And all of what this shows you is monthly billing data. You can see each bar is a monthly, and so this shows you your kilowatt hours usage. Pretty fairly straightforward stuff. What you can do once you have AMI, it provides the customer with a lot more power to analyze how they're using their energy or the water. So what I'm going to show you now, this is the AMI data. This right here is 1 day's worth of usage. So you can go in if you want to see, gosh, how much energy am I using when I run my dishwasher? How much energy am I using when I run? I have Christmas lights on. I'm out of town. I'm worried about a sump pump in my basement. Is that stuck on? Things like that. You can actually go in. You can set alerts and alarms in the system, and because you have 15-minute interval data, you can get alerts on that to, help yourself out. Another big one is pretend this is actually electric data, but if you had water data, this would be the same thing. If this would be your 15-minute water usage, just think you go to Florida for 2 weeks. And your washing machine hose busts off, and you have water leak in your. This will actually, you can set alerts on here where, if you have for X amount of intervals, you have a high water usage, you'll get an alert.
You're talking on your phone, correct? Can you set through your an email or something, or how's that work?
Yeah, you'll get alerts via text.
Okay.
Text or email. I think you have both, or one or the other. So that's just a little bit of the capabilities of what the system can do. All right, I'm back in. All right, another advantage being able to implement an AMI system Because of joint action through WPPI and the 50 other member utilities, you can actually leverage a lot lower cost versus a utility that doesn't have the joint action model. I talked about that head-end system and the meter data management system that we have operating down in ARP, and that's, I think it was about a $2 million investment for us. So if you tried to go to do it by yourself, I mean, you're gonna be looking in the millions of dollars to put this type of a system in. So that, the joint action model really gives you an advantage there because of purchasing with 51 members, utilities total. A little bit of comparison between the AMR and AMI. I'm not gonna, I'll be honest, AMI is a lot more expensive to implement. It flat out is. Looking at, and I'll get to that, but so there's ongoing fees for both systems. Right now we're estimating your AMR system now costs about $1.20 a meter on an annual basis, versus AMI you're looking at about $3.10 a meter on an annual basis. Labor, you've got linemen that have to go out and do disconnects and reconnects for people that for non-payment. Our best estimate was about 72 to 96 man hours a year for linemen to go out and do that work. For AMR, if we go to AMI, that's going to be minimal or close to zero, because the AMI residential meters, you can order them with remote disconnects. So the billing clerk, when you have insufficient funds in your account, that you can go right to in the billing system, click on a button, and that meter gets shut off like that. And then when it is paid up, back in full, you can just same thing. It's just a click of a button right at the city hall. Meter reading labor, up over 140 man hours each year to go around and drive the truck around, do rereads, that kind of stuff. With the AMR system, with AMI, that goes away. It's all automatically goes right into the billing system. Cost upgrade. I put a bunch of X's there with the AMR because we're having troubles right now trying to get nailed on the actual cost on that. But I do know it's going to be about $5,400 to upgrade the software system, and we think it's going to be somewhere in the range of $15,000-ish or more to upgrade the equipment. But we don't have accurate numbers on that yet.
For a year. Until
Pardon?
2021, when it goes obsolete.
That's just to replace the current infrastructure.
Replace the current stuff. AMI, we're looking up towards $450,000 for the complete system. This basically the cost of this. The main costs are the electric meters. You have to actually replace all of the electric meters. The water meters, you actually attach a radio dispatcher that goes on there that connects and links to the electric meters. So you actually keep the existing water meters. The variability in the price there from $379,000 to $454,000. $454,000 is if you order all of the residential meters with the remote disconnect capability. My guess is we'd probably do most of them with that. But if you eliminated the remote disconnect, you'd be down to about $379,000. So it'll be somewhere in between there. Data intervals, talked about with AMR, you have monthly data intervals, whereas with AMI, you have 15-minute information. And then the next one's high use alerts that comes with the data intervals. That now you have that capability with AMI, remote disconnects and reconnects. Transformer loading evaluation, that's something that comes in with AMI. So like you have a neighborhood and you have a transformer that has maybe 5, 6, 7 houses coming off that transformer. You really don't have a good idea if that transformer is overloaded. So with this, you actually get information data coming back from the metering system, so you can do evaluation of the whole system in that sense. And one of the really cool things is this comes packaged with a really neat outage management system. And I'm going to show you this. So outage mapping, you can see, like in recent months in the last year or two, with between some of the utilities that have had outages, and you might see on social media something, they have outage maps where they show all the outages are. Well, with this, you actually have that functionality too. Quickly show you a little deal here. All right, so this here is actually a picture of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. That's one of our other member utilities. And as you can see, the black spots show the number of outages. And what I did just for demonstration purposes, this is from going from January 1st until today, all the outages that have happened in this area during that time frame. So as we zoom in on this, you can see it in the neighborhoods, you can see where all the outages are. And this all will be updated real time with the outage management system, so that not only will the utility workers have that capability to see where they're all located, it really helps them restore power outages if you have something where a storm comes through, identifying where the main outages are. And then also it gives capabilities to customers to get an idea of what's happening in the city too. And as you keep on zooming in on this, let's see, it'll show the dots. Like it's right here, there's a outage on that meter there, there's 2 meters here, 2 meters here, so on and so forth. This system will also generate service requests. So it's almost like a work order system. When you have the outages, it'll generate right to the North Star system, generating work order for your utility personnel to go out and address it and close them out. Right now it's set up with, this would send text messages and or phone calls to the utility workers to alert where the outages are. And coming soon, we'll have the functionality that it will do the same for the customers. To build it, like say you're out of town and you have a power outage, you'd get an alert on that. And of course, records outage history with the service requests that have automatic database of outage histories. All right, plan. So we kind of sat down and worked out a plan here of how we wanted to approach this. So like I said, it was included in the 2020 budget, but being it's such a big expenditure, I want to make sure everyone knew what the technology was and see if there's any questions on if this is right for Negaunee. So we set it up on a 5-year implementation schedule. I believe in your packets you had the schedule of both the 5-year capital plan and then the implementation schedule for the AMI. The way that would roll out is year 1, which this year 2020, we would set up the backbone of the system, which would be the collector units essentially, and we have probably about 30 three-phase customers and large power customers. We would get those ones set up first. Probably a couple residential customers too, just to help with the meshing network. Then in year 2, we would start banging out all the residential electric meters, and then start on the water meters in probably in year 2 also. And then we set it up as a 4-year implementation for the remainder of the electric and the water. To be honest, we could probably do the electric within 2 or 3 years easy, but we didn't want to try to rush it. Want to make sure they're comfortable with getting it in. The water meters are going to be a little bit more difficult to implement and probably take more time because they're all located usually almost in all the basements or crawl spaces of the house. It's a little bit harder scheduling to get people to get them in your house to attach those radio units. Like I said, worst case scenario, you're looking at $450,000 for complete implementation, $292 for electric and the upfront backbone of the system. And then the water cost, which is just the radio units that go into the water meters, be about $162,000. This I just wanted to show you a way that the electric fund capital outlay line item has been and where we're projecting it to be. The blue lines, I started back in 2016 on the left, going all the way to projected to 2024 on the right. The blue lines is actual spending for each of those fiscal years in the capital outlay. This is just electric fund, not the water. 2020 is the budget for this year, and then 2021 through 2024, the gray bars is the 5-year capital plan that we had in there, what we're projecting to spend. And the yellow pieces of each of those 5 bars is the AMI component of that total. So you can see where that fits in the total spending of what we're projecting or proposing. So we've got some lead times of at least 16 weeks on some of the pieces of this project. So we would like to move forward with procurement as soon as possible. We'd like to start moving in on springtime installations. Does anyone have any questions or concerns on how we're going to move forward with this project?
I'll start. And I'll start with you, Nate. What is our true benefit to the city?
Well, I mean, I think part of it's going to be overall customer service satisfaction. That's part of it, and there's obviously going to be some savings in labor and issues to that accord. But I think the more information we get out to our customers, the better our system will, the better they'll be able to adequately use our system. Additional things will be coming out too. WPPIs will be changing their pricing structure based on high peak times and things like that. So customers will be able to see when they're running air conditioning units and when they should shut things off and things like that.
I get all of that, but what? You know my pet peeve on the electric fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
And we are getting back to where we used to be. And I'm concerned. We do this, we're not gonna have any monies available to us to do any other projects, such as pole replacements and things like that, that we desperately know need to happen here as well too. I just don't know what we are going to gain from the city standpoint by moving over to this technology over the next 5 years. I'm not seeing it.
Well, to address your first, I don't understand when you were going back to where we were.
Well, look at this graph right there, for example.
Yes, that's the spending for capital expenditures. That doesn't reflect the fund itself. There's over $3 million in that fund right now.
And you're proposing every year for 5 years, there's going to be AMI costs coming out of that fund.
Some AMI costs, yes.
And there's going to be your proposed budgets coming out for other things that happen that need to be implemented for the AMI, all of which are not in there right now. And our fund balance for the electrical is, like you said, yeah, we've got $3 million in there. We used to have more and we should have more. That's just my opinion, and I'm one council. I just want to be very careful, and I know the general public out there has been watching us tooth and nail too as to what we do with that fund.
Mm-hmm.
I get asked about it occasionally. And that's where I'm at with it. I see the benefits. I'm a technology guy. I see the benefits all the way around. I just don't know if it's something that we need to implement now. That's all I'm saying. The other side is your outages. We talked about the outages. That's all great for the customer when the power outage is local. What happens when the power outage is on your end and it affects your servers? How is that information?
Feed to the
Yes. How is that information? Paul said it's every 15 minutes, if I understood you correctly.
yes.
Those meters. So if you got a power outage coming back to you after the collection point through the WAN, and your fiber feed is cut for whatever reason, what assurances do we have as a city that we're not going to lose revenue because you weren't able to get that data? Am I making sense? You understand what I'm asking?
I quite understand.
I think you're talking about the servers at WPPI. The WPPI system, I believe, has a backup generator system. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we got a dual system.
Well, that's on the power side, and I would hope that you would. matter of fact, I think that's Homeland Security rules that you do have to have. I'm more concerned on the fiber cut side of things. Where's your redundancy right now? Do you have any? Or do you just rely on one main fiber?
Well, gosh, we don't own the fiber.
There you go back to my other questions, my concerns.
This is how we're getting our data to the place right now currently, so I don't understand it. This is a moot point in my opinion. I don't know what you're
No, it's not, because we have it locally, our guys will have that information, obviously we have historical.
And they upload it to the internet, and the internet, they transfer it that way.
But we also have the ability to upload to the internet. It's not uploaded through a WAN, which is speed of light through boom, fiber all the way through. It's not hitting the cloud anywhere at all until he puts it out on the cloud through a server back to the customers. So we're actually accessing the internet and uploading that information ourselves.
I see what you're saying, but I mean, I think it's still a moot point because the data is still going to be collected at some point and then transferred to some location.
Well, we're taking it out of our guys' hands by going to the AMI system. We no longer are going to have control of that because we're relying on our meters to do their job and send that information out every 15 minutes, which is all fine and dandy. But if there is an issue, where's that information going now? It goes to the collection box. From the collection box, it goes one of the 3 collection boxes, depending on the meter, right? Then it goes into their server. And then it goes into a secondary server where they collocate everything.
I think I understand what you're saying. So I think to kind of clarify if I'm not hitting you weird. So if the fiber were to be cut for a month long,
It won't be a month, I know that.
right? So that's what you're at right now. So right now, those 15 minutes, if it gets cut for a month, then we're up to where we are now. If it gets cut for longer than a month, now we're in bad shape than we're at now. That data is still always going to be there. Let's say the communication.
So
goes
in the
down
collection, port.
Hmm?
The quickest answer, I'll ask it this way then.
Okay.
When it goes to that collection port, how long is it stored there? Or is it just sent down and once received, it's deleted from the system?
I don't think it's stored there. I think it's just collected and brought out.
So how are you, if your fiber's cut and it's gonna be fixed, and if it's not fixed in 30 days, you got more serious problems.
Yeah.
But you get your fiber problem and it's fixed within 48 hours. 24 hours even better.
I'm sorry. This isn't. Well, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Are you saying this isn't using fiber? Or is everything done through the internet to Nate's point?
No. This would go over through internet. Yeah.
Internet only. Well, with some fiber connections here and there, which I'm not too concerned about, because those are right there. It's not your main trunk line. So there's absolutely no collection data being sent by a fiber back to your servers. It's all done through, to Nate's point, the internet itself. Which I believe, is it a WAN that you're using?
I think so. I'm not. That's not my specialty, but I can definitely find out for you.
The reason I ask, just for the council people's and Nate's concerns too, it isn't just from a customer standpoint, but we get charged from NIWA every month as well too. So if that data is not being accurately portrayed because of an issues that we have no control of, and that's basically what we're asking to do here too, is give them control of all of this too. And you have good, trust, I like WPPI, but I'm just saying, there's more revenue right there that we could potentially be losing, and now it's affecting the region even more so. I want to think of the whole thing, that's all I'm saying.
Your 3 collection servers.
So if the situation you're talking about right now, if that were to happen, that's going to happen right now too. It's no different. Because when the collections now go to the Northside billing system, they go right to Sun Prairie, to the same needs.
To the same server that.
Yeah, so you're in no different situation by going to the end.
Okay, all right, that helps me. Okay. And last question I have then too, which is on the positive side, will our utility billing clerk, utility billing clerk have permissions to be able to do anything and everything from a utility standpoint? Or we're gonna have to rely on WPPI personnel?
No, we are gonna rely on what our ordinance allows us to do. We're not gonna have WPPI, work on our behalf for that. So anything that's a shut off will be done through our office, not through WPPI.
And if we need like reports and things like that, she'll be able to run
She
those
can run
reports
that.
instantly?
We would be able to run that, and customers would be able to run their own reports as well. Our goal hopefully is if we do implement this process, to get more online billing so that it'll be quicker. And also for folks to be able to access the information immediately and have some stopgap measures put in place for high energy usage and also the water portion of that. So a portion of this money, which is not reflected on that graph there, is going to come from the water fund over a 5-year period to cover the water portion, and the rest would come from the electric fund. So we have looked at the monies that we have available and policies that we have currently available, and we tailored this out over 5 years so we weren't spending the money down very fast. And so we can kind of recoup some of that cost. And I want to note to you on this too, when you guys pass the new energy rates,
It's
the
factoring in
coverage, this is factored in, and we raised a fee on that, which will go off after the 5 years, which covers the whole existence of this program. So it doesn't affect the bottom line, but minimally, with the cost of the charges, which would be like we don't put into effect the whole $12,000 a year it would cost for the use of the implementation and all that type of stuff. So most of this is covered.
After that meeting, I realized what we had done.
Yeah.
I have a question
so I-
regarding the shut-offs.
Yes.
So our clerk will be able to shut off anyone's power, and we won't have to have anyone go out to manually do that. So that's done through the internet?
Yeah.
Okay. What safeguards are built in that are protecting our people from, malicious? I mean, it's a reality,
Oh yeah.
and I have to ask.
Best I can answer that we have a really, really super duper cybersecurity firewall kind of a deal. That's not my bailiwick explain it, but yeah, we have a lot of
Tested.
security. I would say that's one of the things that we work on very heavily is our cybersecurity.
Yeah, because something like that, if your electric's turned off here in the UT during the winter, it's pretty serious.
Oh yeah, and of course with anything that's internet based, that's a threat.
I have a question.
Sure.
Let's say we went to another AMR system. Are all AMR systems becoming obsolete? All the equipment and software, or is it just the particular ones that we use?
Yeah.
And if we did replace it, what kind of lifetime would we be able to get out of a new system, AMR system?
Sure. So I think this situation is more isolated to just the equipment that you have now. The Itron system that was purchased now is just the end of life. I don't know much about any of the other AMR systems, where they're going with them or, what's happening with them. Lifetime, I don't know that either. I don't know. And do you have any idea when this was purchased? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
It was back in the Jerry Peterson years.
Yeah, it was,
It's been almost a
probably 10
decade.
or more.
Yeah.
That was when we put all the new meters in, is what you're speaking of, correct? So that would have been 2006 or 7.
So do you guys remember when that was installed? About what it would cost and how long it took to upgrade that? What kind of
I don't remember what the was for the system. I remember what it was for all the overtime. To put up in, but no, I can't answer that.
obviously more than expensive, I think.
Any further questions before? All right, at this point, we'll move this towards, do we want to read the recommendation before we
You
move
want
to
to
the
make
motion? Or
a motion? Make that
everyone has the
motion?
blue sheets in front of them? The one stipulation we have on this, if making the recommendation, make sure that you include the fiscal effects, that line item talking about the total cost into the motion as your so moved. So I guess at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion for any further discussion.
Well, I apologize. Too bad about that.
Well, this was questioning, but if we're gonna have further discussion, I'd like a motion on the floor first.
Well, I'll make a motion to take, let me rephrase that. I'll make a motion to postpone this until our March meeting.
I second it.
And you read? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, who seconded that? You?
All right, so at this point, we'll open up discussion on that motion.
The reason it allows me the time that I can have to sit down with Nate and also sit down with Mr. Warnier to get their thoughts for and other questions that I may have. And then it also allows the other two council members around here to an opportunity to come back and make comments as well too. This is a significant cost. I mean, I understand preliminarily anyways, the cost benefit analysis to the city to a point. But just because something looks flashy and can work, better efficiently doesn't mean that we have to go that route. To Councilman Flo's brought up a very good point too. The AMR system, there are others out there. We know what's going obsolete now, what we currently have. So for those reasons, I would postpone these to the base.
Okay. Councilmember Juan.
I second it. Before I was on city council, I was here present, listening to your presentation before, and I am excited about new data and to see how my sons are using up my electricity and water. But I'm cautious and want to learn more before going forward with a decision that affects everybody.
Okay. I guess one other question for me is, do you have an idea of what percentage of end users want to have that kind of information, that fine grained?
I might. Some of my supervisor, he might have some information on some national basis. We might have some. We do rolling. We do every 3 years we do customer surveys, and that might have been part of the survey information too. I could see if we have any of that.
Okay. One more time around the board discussion. All right. The only comment I have is this. Thank you for your presentation. Before we move towards our motions or voting this motion, but as we look at this, I just want the others here, and I do appreciate having the other two council members here. So postponing it, I feel I'm amenable to that, but I also want those that are present to keep in mind that we did budget for this. We have had this discussion, and we already built it into our fee schedule that we did approve in our budget. As far as the systems go, it would be nice to know if there are other systems, but looking at the way that the market's going overall, we do have the My Account system right now that we've rolled out with the city, and I don't know if anyone else here is utilizing online billing, but it would be nice. I know I've been utilizing it. It'd be nice to see the other half of my utility bill showing up on there and be able to take and monitor that data. And also for the other council members to bear in mind that without naming municipalities, but we've had some incidences within our local area where users had a leak, especially during this freeze cycle. That they weren't aware of for a good month or so, and were faced with some pretty hefty bills. And that was covered in the media pretty extensively. So this is one of those things that I look to a lot of our residents that are snowbirds or otherwise that may be taking in and might be interested in utilizing this. And I will tell you that some of our older generations are much more tech savvy than we give them credit for. So, as far as asking the question for users that might be looking to use this, I get surprised on a regular basis. So. That's all I have. So I guess at this point, any other further comments or discussion? So we'll move this to a vote. On the motion is postponed until next month for additional information. Otherwise, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Moving on to 8.3. Agreement between the city of Negaunee and the LSCP. We have Mary Myers here to present on behalf of the Superior Community Partnership.
Thank you for having me. I am the Director of Business Development for the Lake Superior Community Partnership, for those who do not know me. I am just going to go over some of the briefly what happened in 2019 for the City of Negaunee with the LSCP. That is in the report that you guys have, the year-end report. Some things just to highlight for the LSCP, we've served over 500 clients this past year, 501 to be exact, but that's over 500. So many of those were in Negaunee. We did see a increase in the services that we provided on the west end, which is always a good thing that we have in years past. Our regional wealth is increasing. That's what we want to see. If that's not increasing, then that means that we're not doing our job. So some of those numbers are increasing in the double digits, where the population, for instance, is not increasing. We all know that population throughout the entire state of Michigan is declining. So that's something that, you know, the entire state is looking at. Some other things that we implemented last year for tools are our impact studies. With one of our services that we have, it's called InPlan, but we can do impact analysis. So we did one for the Hiawatha Music Festival last year. We're working with the UP 200 this year to see how that has affected the community or will affect the community. And then we can also do it on businesses. So when Cliffs idled, that was one of the big tools that we used to see how it was going to affect all of their vendors and everything. Succession planning was a soft launch last year, and there are some businesses in Negaunee that we work with their succession planning kit. One of our other main focuses is government relations. Nate is, I'm sorry, I'm blanking today because it's been a long day. We had Operation HMP today. He is part of our ambassador group, so he comes to Lansing with us once or twice a year, and actively participates in that. So we advocate for the entire UP. There's 30 to 40 business members that are a part of that, and we go down with one voice and advocate for issues up here. One of our main focuses recently was the wage study increase. So if you haven't heard, Governor Whitmer is looking at increasing the minimum wage threshold for salaried employees to even more than what she just increased federally. We did a survey through all of the businesses in Marquette County, and there was a lot of responses from the small businesses in Negaunee, Ishpeming, and Marquette, and we were able to provide all that information back to the administration so they know how it is going to affect the small businesses up here. In particular to Negaunee, we helped with the second Moving Forward and State of the City event. We did all the media for that, created the PowerPoint, got more pins, did the event invitations, and then helped with that partner showcase at the end as well. We did our 2-site selector e-blast, working with the city on the properties that we wanted to be showcased that, and that goes to over 1,000 site selectors nationally to help promote those vacant properties to be occupied. This year, it's only February, so these numbers are going to be small. We've already helped 2 startups in the city of Negaunee, and I've worked with 4 clients. And then we also have 16 sites that are listed on that Zoom Prospector site, which we use that tool to, if a business comes in and they're looking for somewhere to locate, that's the tool that we use to see if there's any buildings or sites that are available to fit their needs. So I kind of went over that a lot pretty fast. So if you guys have any questions on any of that, let me know. The agreement that we're discussing tonight is very similar to the one that was that's going to expire in March. Talking to Nate, some of the things that we did change on there was support for the DDA that is being started up. That's something that he feels that we could help with, and then also continuing support for the Moving Forward event going forward.
Any questions? So, thank you very much for your presentation. At this point, I'd be looking for a motion to allow the city manager to enter the agreement.
So, second.
Okay. Further discussion?
I just want to say again, I've always been an advocate for the LSCP, you know that, Mary, but to the other council members, in years past, there's always been some scuttlebutt in regards to what does the LSCP do for the West End. Well, these last few years, you all have stepped up, and not just in the city of Negaunee, I noticed in Richmond as well. So I think this is funds that are allocated that is working in every piston moving forward in the same direction as we are. That can only help us going forward, and quite honestly, I'm very impressed with what we've gotten in the last year and previous years as well too. Previous year before that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just add a little further support to what Councilmember Gladwell said, because I recall you and I were both here when we started having a discussion about bringing LSCP back and some of the past history and otherwise, and I think it's become a good collaboration, a great relationship to maybe take and dispel some of those past feelings and otherwise, and I definitely feel as though if you look at it, the way we felt at that time was this is an investment, so I think it's been money well spent, especially when you look at some of the things we've had going on recently and some of the different milestones that you mentioned even in the last year. So thank you again. When I see him, I'll tell her the same, but pass along to before that.
Well, thank you. You have a great city manager who's helping us with these efforts.
No,
So.
don't let it all go to his head. So,
Tired of me, know.
Yeah.
so with that, we have the motion on the floor. We'll go to a vote. All in favor of the motion to allow the city manager to enter into the agreement with LSCP, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. All right, moving on to 8.4. With this, do you want to speak to this or? Okay. All right, all of you have in front of you a resolution for waiver of penalty and interest for untimely filed property tax or property transfer affidavits. So whereas under PA 206 of 1893, the governing body of the local tax collecting unit may waive by resolution the penalty level under subsection 1, paragraph C or D of the MCL 211.7D. So the resolution, as you see before you, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Public Act 206 of 1893 of the State of Negaunee, Marquette County authorizes the city manager or their designee to waive the collection of penalty and interest for untimely filed property transfer affidavits. So with this, we will have to do a roll call vote on this. We have a background, so if we could have a motion for the resolution. Okay. Councilmember Flowey,
I'll support.
supported by Councilmember Gladwell. Discussion. Okay, so Madam Secretary, roll call.
Councilmember Wallner?
Yeah.
Councilmember Flowey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lalonde?
Yes.
Councilmember Gladwell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're also gonna have to have a roll call vote on this next. 8.5, poverty exemption income guidelines and asset test resolution. This is a long one, you all have it in front of you.
Yes.
So with that background from either one of you.
Sure. So this is something that we need to consider adopting. This sets the poverty exemption guidelines as it pertains to taxes collected within property taxes collected within the city. It's set by state statute, and there's certain requirements somebody has to meet to see if they can become exempt from having taxes collected from them. This is something that has to be done yearly by each taxing authority that has the ability to collect property taxes. And this is something that I think has been neglected in the past, but there's, but from what I understand, it's been neglected in the
No,
past.
this hasn't, the one
Oh, I'm
previous.
sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
This one we have to do, we do it every
Okay,
year.
so this is, yeah,
Yeah,
pardon me, I'm sorry. This is
Okay.
done every year. So if you were here last year, you know it's about, that's what I'm gonna say about it. It's kind of complicated, this sets the guidelines, so.
For the board of review.
Yeah, the board review.
Alright.
Yeah, housekeeping.
housekeeping, the annual resolution. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
You're gonna make the
You're
motion?
gonna make the motion?
You don't need to read the whole thing.
Okay. So the motion was made by Councilmember Wands, supported by Councilmember Floyd. Any further discussion?
Just to make sure that the motion is, these are the exemption guidelines for 2020, because they do change annually.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, the guidelines are on the second page. Okay. And the asset test.
So with that, further discussion? So I will move to a roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Lalonde? Councilmember Gladwell?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallner?
Yes.
Councilmember Floyd?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, moving on to 8.6, set public hearing. What was that? For the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund and Rural Project Grant for Jackson Mine Park Playground Project. And go ahead with the background.
A public hearing needs to be set for the March regular meeting to secure citizen input regarding an application for an MNRTF and RP grant requesting funding for construction of an ADA compliant playground and walkway with connection to on-site restrooms as well as site amenities at the Jackson Mine Park. Recommendation, set a public hearing for March 12th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
So, okay. Councilmember Floyd, you made a motion, supported by Councilmember Lalonde. We'll try in the future to read the motion out, so there is some language we gotta sometimes insert, not this one, but. So the motion on the floor is to set the public hearing, further discussion.
Is this the actual design that they're planning?
This is proposed right here. This is not finalized. Right now, this is just to give you guys kind of a taste of what we've been discussing currently. And again, this is just to set the public hearing because we cannot apply for any grants unless we have a public hearing first. So these are all version.
Any further discussion? Alright, so motion is on the floor. Move to a vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Moving on to 8.7, set special meeting for senior center project bids. So, I'm pretty blank blue sheet here, so.
Our
I
meeting
move that
should
we
be
set
set.
a meeting, excuse me,
Go
do I
ahead.
have the floor? I move that we set up a special meeting for March 2nd, 6 p.m. here at the senior center.
For what date?
March 2nd.
What day of the week is that?
Monday, I believe.
The bids are being opened on the 21st, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so that's, you're making that as a motion?
Yes.
Support?
Well, do we need to make a motion? I mean, that's something you can actually set up.
Well,
right?
We
I
didn't
think
know.
that's why they put it on.
Yeah.
We wanted to
So
make
you
sure
guys
that
would all
we
be on
had-
the same page.
And we're doing that it's at 6 p.m. This is a
Yep.
special meeting. Alright, so Councilman Gravel, you supported it? Okay. So with the motion on the floor to set the public hearing for March 2nd at 6 p.m., all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, 8.8, budget adjustment to hire a police officer. Secretary background?
A budget adjustment is being requested due to an unforeseen circumstance. The original plan, as you may recall during our budget session last year, was to wait to replace 2 officers that we knew would be retiring. The purpose for waiting was to allow the new chief of police then to build his own department. Currently, we have an interim chief, and he will not be fully in place until his 1-year transitionary period is over. This plan was moving ahead well, but we recently have had an officer fall ill to the point where they are on FMLA since the beginning of January. With this said, we can no longer wait until next year. Recommendation, amend budget for a police officer, $60,000 to fulfill request to allow city manager to infill this position to allow for adequate coverage as follows. Decrease curb and sidewalk fund services by $20,000, decrease street maintenance contract services for $40,000, decrease electric fund distribution capital outlay by $2,900, increase the following line items in the general fund, police, other general government and electrical budget by that amount. Alternative, wait until 2021.
Anything further before we move on motion?
No, I just recommend that you allow this change to occur. It'll add for, it's gonna add, we have some issues going on as pertaining to spending overtime that we don't need to spend. Again, this is an unforeseen circumstance. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to provide the same adequate police service we are providing right now. But as you know, with overtime, and if anybody else gets sick or anything like that, it's really going to strain us. So I would appreciate to do this. This is just a little bit ahead of schedule. And if you have any further questions on the matter, I'm here to answer them for you.
I just had one to point out in the third line over there. It says 2.91.
It's just a clerical error. Just a clerical error.
It's just,
Yeah. So it won't matter.
I caught that too and turned mine into a comma there.
I just wondered if it mattered or not.
2.9 million. Just kidding.
Shh. Yeah. No way.
All right. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we budget for a police officer to fulfill the request of the city manager to fill the position now.
Supported by Councilmember One. At this time, any further discussion on the matter?
You know, I appreciate the city manager being forthright on this with all of us, letting us know what's at, and I know that he thought about possibly rating, but circumstances definitely have changed, and I hope our officers are much better in coming back.
I'm in complete agreement. We need our police officer.
Absolutely.
You know,
So with that said, we have the motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 8.9. We're looking at revenue expenditure reports, trial balances.
Thank you, and I apologize to you, Nate, because I didn't catch this until tonight when I was going over the second time. And I don't need answers now, I just wanna bring this out, and then you can respond tonight if you can. If you can't, that's fine too, but first page, miscellaneous. What are, define miscellaneous for me?
You're talking about on the bottom there, under revenues,
Under general fund,
under general fund.
line item 699.0.
I can tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I can tell you. Are you looking at the 98,000?
No, I'm looking at the, yes, I am looking at the 98,000, thank you.
We and the engineer who worked on the pavilion, GEI, sent us a voucher to pay Associated, and I inadvertently paid GEI instead of Associated, so they sent the check back to me.
Okay.
We put it in miscellaneous. Judy then makes a budget adjustment.
Okay.
So that's why it's 51 negative. That means we're over in.
Thank you very
My
much.
fault.
Okay. So, anything further?
Yeah, probably similar here too, but on page 4, I believe, there's an $8,000 expense under the housing commission.
Page 4.
Yeah. But there was nothing budgeted for.
I don't
Let's see
see
housing commission.
I'm sorry, page 5. Okay.
Well, now that we're all on the same sheet.
Can you read the account number off, please?
702.
We don't handle their budget at all. We just pay their payroll.
Are we not a fiduciary pass through?
No, we do not have anything to do with their budget whatsoever. We just pay their payroll. So that's why it's doing that. We,
So we really are nothing more than just a pass through.
right,
Yeah, no,
sorry,
that's-
yes.
Okay. And that's
Good catch.
So-
Good
no,
questions.
that's actually something, to be honest with you, I should have caught years ago, and I
Yeah.
didn't. So
I'll have to look up on this too, because I don't recall, looking at these line items, because there is no original budget put in here.
well, that
Yeah,
makes
we
sense
don't-
because
we
there's
don't-
nothing to
Yeah,
budget.
it's
We
not
don't
our
have.
software, so.
No, I understand now. So,
But
okay,
good questions.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Do we have to do, we are gonna have to vote on this,
Yes.
in order to take it.
Yep.
Results. That's what I wanted to clarify.
I move that we approve the revenue and expenditure report as presented.
And do we have support for that? Supported by Councilmember Lalonde. Any discussion on that before we move to a vote? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We approve the revenue expenditures. Item number 9, consent agenda. So that'll be include 9.1 minutes from January 9th, 2020 regular meeting, 9.2 claims and accounts, and 9.4 appointments to boards and commissions. And all of you should have received, or you got this evening, the correction on that 9.4. So if I can entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make.
Councilmember Floyd, supported by Councilmember Lalonde. All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. So we'll flip my page here. All right, second public comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. Anyone from the public wish to speak? All right, hearing none, close public comment. Moving on to council committees. Now you're 911.
She's on.
You're on the 911 board now. Okay, anything from the 911 board?
I went, they sworn me in.
Okay.
I did take a tour of Central Dispatch. That was enlightening. With Gary Pearson and they did a hard job. There's nothing in there.
Okay. All right, and thank you. Last meeting, I attended my first meeting of the Market County Transit Authority, and some of the things that came out of that, we approved the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. I did get a tour of the facility prior to the meeting. One of the things is we were looking also at some of the stuff on the budget, and as Mr. Sosi had given the presentation on the Negaunee Complete Streets, taking a look at bus stops and otherwise. You know, I had asked the current director, Mark Tran, as far as bus stops and otherwise. There's only 2 bus stops that they actually have that they maintain, aside from that one that's down on 3rd Street. The transit station down near the Jansen House, for any of you that are aware, we do the county courthouse. Aside from that, I did inquire to, bus stops, because I've had that question before. We do have one down here on Teal Lake, right along Croy Street. As we look at some of the other economic improvement otherwise, it's just something that at least to keep in mind, to look at for protective covers and enclosures. The biggest reason why Marktran themselves and coming out of the millage money and working as far as the county, if they don't do it, is because then they would be responsible for it. We did have a discussion as far as if a municipality wanted to take and have a bus stop or a bus station, that they would have to look at it in their own budget, both maintaining it and otherwise. She was saying there was a cost of almost $8,000, which I don't know how much it costs to build a bus stop, but just something to think about. As I said, as we start moving forward, creating some protective stands for the buses, because I know we've had residents that have complained about not having a place to stand safely, and they have moved to just flag stops.
So $8,000 for a bus stop?
Yes. I'll
Or
get more.
just a
I'll
covered-
I'll try and get more information for you on that. But yes, my eyebrows raised as well when I was told that number. So. Yep. Moving on to council members. So I guess since you're all alone, we'll start with you first.
Well, first off, very well done tonight. Colton did an outstanding job. I just want to say that thank you to all those involved with Hickey Winter. Again, it was, went really well. I unfortunately was not able to get down and partake in any of the festivities downtown because my daughter was playing a basketball tournament, but I heard that it went over really, really well. So, second thing, I am getting nothing but praise to our DPW in regards to snow removal. I appreciate the fact that they're focusing on the downtown as well too. I do have one question, and it's just a question, not nitpicking. Over by the fire hall, right in front of the business there, when we had a significant snowfall, I noticed that we came through, we were actually putting snow, I believe Mr. Mackey owns that business on the corner there.
The
Garage?
service station,
Yeah.
the garage.
Do we have his permission to do that?
I do not know, but I can find out.
I mean, I haven't gotten any phone calls. I just happened to be on the boat and watching them do it, and I'm thinking, because I know we push it across over Rail Street also. But, kudos to the DPW for all the work that they've been doing, and then getting up, cutting the base down too is huge. So, and that's all I have.
Councilmember Floyd.
I just want to thank our presenters tonight for the information and the hard work they put into their presentations. It's going to be very helpful for us to make a decision on those initiatives. And other than that, that's about it.
Councilmember Watt.
Thank our presenters again tonight. Very enlightening, and excuse me. And I am very happy with our snow removal as well. Even when I go out and have to shovel the end of the driveway. I was curious what route they do for clearing out our fire hydrants, and because I was worried about at the end of my block, but I see someone's taking care of that, or is that citizens that do it?
It's adopt a hydrant.
Yeah. That's all I have for today.
Yeah, as far as that, taking a look at it, I got some good feedback on that. It was very busy downtown. That's always great to see. And I know that we recently had the fishing tournament on the lake. It was quite active out there. I believe that was last weekend that we had that the ice fishing tournament. Had a lot of media coverage from the South Shore Fishing Association and otherwise. So that was great to see. Very busy down there. Very crowded at the Holiday gas station for those couple days. But aside from that, thank you, Councilmember Gladwell, and for the rest of you. I have nothing further, so on to you, Mr. City Manager.
You know, and I have one last thing, and I can't believe I forgot this.
Alibis come with a charge.
I just wanted to point out to the council, again, a testament to Nate as well too. I actually received a phone call from one of my former clients when I was with Charter. Mr. Lightfoot called me out of the blue. I haven't spoken to him in like 2 years. I have no reason to speak to him, and he picked up the phone to call me to let me know that he's heard about Negaunee and everything that's going on up here. And he was just offering his gratitude as he comes up here frequently. Doesn't come actually to Negaunee, but he comes to the people. But he heard what was going on in Negaunee and everything. I was very, very appreciative and happy to hear that it's not just being mentioned around here in the county, it's being noticed downstate as well.
I guess I do have. So see, now you forced me to an alibi. For those of you that new to the council, you received the invite to the legislative reception at the Landmark tomorrow evening. You didn't? Should have got one. You can have mine. But it's a good opportunity, to Councilmember Gladwell's point, to be able to take and interact with some of those folks, state representatives and otherwise that are in town for the UP 200. And as due to the work that Nate's been doing along with the rest of the city staff and the help of LSCP and other partners that we have, the guy definitely, hopefully they're on the upper run. So now it's to you.
All right, good deal. Well, tonight the only thing I'm going to mention is there'll be a policy forthcoming to you on how we're going to deal with getting our stuff online, all the meetings that we're filming up and online. We have some criteria in there too, explaining how the films can be edited and what should be taken off. The beginning stuff of the meeting is actually happening, and the end stuff if anything gets picked up at the end. And then if we have a malfunction, we'll have some information there saying there was a malfunction and didn't record or something of that sort. And there's a retention policy and whatnot. So that will be forthcoming to you. It doesn't need approval or anything from you. It's just let me know what policy I adopted. Since we do not have the ability to have our own channel, the charter, this is our alternative at this point. So just want to let you know.
I guess I have a question on that real quick then. Does that also, I know under Jeff Gordon, when he was here, the city manager, I discussed with him what the social media policy is. That
There we have
okay. Is that going to coincide with that in essence?
We will have to see how that affects the online posting of that. I'm not sure. I think we have to stick to the community standards of whatever outlet we use. So whatever their standards are, we will use. If we do have the ability, I haven't decided whether we will restrict the ability to comment on videos, because I'm not familiar with that feature at this point. But if that answers your question a little bit there.
A little bit. We can talk more about it.
We have a social media policy where if people are obviously calling people names, swearing, or not adding to the content, that they're either blocked or their information is taken off of that site since we posted. So.
City attorney. All right. Nothing further. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved. Supported by Councilmember Long. All right. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed?
Oh, see you all night.
Hearing none. Moving. Meeting is adjourned.